Hello, and welcome to Life of Love with Julie and Friends. I'm super excited to introduce my guest today, Patrick Prohaska. He's a teacher, healer, and author who has helped thousands of clients and students shine with personal power, joy, and authenticity. He specializes in personal empowerment, consciousness expansion, trauma recovery, and sexual healing. Patrick is the creator of Lightbridge, a revolutionary system for healing and personal transformation that blends the law of attraction coaching principles with belief sculpting and energetic activations. He has a bachelor's degree in history of science and a master's in the religions of ancient India, and has studied several healing systems, including Ayurveda, Reiki, Theta healing, aromatherapy, and more. Patrick is the author of Brain Cells, Escape Your Mental Prisons, and Dream Yourself Awake, The Power of Lucid Living. He lives in Southern California and is available for lectures, seminars, and workshops around the globe. When he's away from the office, you'll probably find him hiking in the wilderness. I thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, thank you for joining me today, Patrick.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, I want to get right into it. I mean, the idea of sharing magic and living a life of magic is what we're all about with this podcast. And I'm excited to hear what you're going to share with us about expanding consciousness and in simple ways we can do it. So you want to start with your definition of consciousness?
Oh my God. That is such a big question. So, yes. So, when I think about consciousness, I think of an energy that pervades the universe. So, for me, it the feeling that I get and the experience that I've had is that consciousness actually gives rise to everything that exists in the universe. That the universe itself actually is consciousness manifest in physical form. So there are lots of people out there, like neuroscientists, for example, and I'm a big fan of neuroscience. I love the scientific study of how the human brain works. But a lot of people who are limited by the scientific viewpoints on how the brain works, they come to the conclusion that consciousness is nothing more than a byproduct of how the brain functions. That the brain is so sophisticated that over time it developed this ability to become self aware. And consciousness arises out of the functions of the brain. And therefore, when the physical body dies, consciousness is snuffed out. That's one viewpoint. That's not the viewpoint that I have. My personal viewpoint is that consciousness is essentially the primary force out of which the universe is created, and that we all are manifestations of consciousness. We all have consciousness. We have this physical body that allows us to constrict consciousness and flow consciousness in certain directions. And the unfortunate thing, or the challenge that we have as human beings in this three-dimensional reality that we live in, is that because we are constrained in a physical body in a three-dimensional reality, our consciousness is constrained as well. But just because you have constrained consciousness in the confines of a physical body, that doesn't mean that you can't expand your consciousness. And expanding your consciousness involves seeing in a way that goes way beyond the physical nature that you live in. It goes beyond the three dimensions that we live in. It goes beyond linear time and space. It goes beyond the awareness that you're just this blip in a tiny portion of the whole timeline of existence. Time collapses in on itself when you expand your consciousness and you become unshackled from the three dimensional world that we live in, and you can see beyond. Now, maybe when you come back to your physical body once again, you are not really able to carry the whole expansive experience of consciousness with you, but you get a new perspective on life in the here and now. And really, what expanding your consciousness, the practical purpose of expanding your consciousness is to learn how to live a better life in the here and now. And when you recognize that the universe is much more than this physical world that we perceive on a daily basis, you begin to recognize that all the games we play as embodied human beings are not necessarily the most powerful way to live. All of the us versus them thinking that we get stuck in, all of the zero sum game thinking, the belief that for me to have more, somebody else must have less. Or if somebody over there has more, that means there's less left over for me. All of that begins to break down, and you begin to recognize the interpenetration of all beings in the here and now. So I know I just you opened up a can of worms with that question. How do I define consciousness? So I'm
I wanted
yeah.
to give people who haven't even thought about consciousness some framework, right? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
if you're limited and think your consciousness is just what your brain is about, then there really is no reason to contemplate it. But when you bring in your consciousness is everything in form, everything that's happening, because if it's just your brain, your heart has nothing to do with it. There's no feelings, there's no emotions,
Well,
except for how
in a
you
sense,
process them through
yeah.
your brain.
See, the thing
So,
is, if you have the perspective that consciousness is nothing more than the product of the brain firing, you can still live a very happy and successful life. But you're not going to get the richness that's available to you when you expand your consciousness. So, some people who are very deeply entrenched in what I call the positivist mindset, which is they only believe what their physical senses tell them and absolutely nothing else. In fact, they actively disbelieve anything that they have never experienced themselves. That's called positivism. It's a branch of scientific philosophy. If you're a positivist, it doesn't necessarily mean that your life is sad and empty and meaningless. You can still find meaning and happiness. I just think that your life is so much more rich if you do have that heart connection that you're talking about, and awareness that what we're living here and now is, it's not just not all there is, it's actually a very little teeny tiny dimension of what's possible for us. So yeah, sorry to interrupt. So
no, it's
yeah.
beautiful. I mean, it's all about finding the magic and living in wonder, right? And
Absolutely.
we have this human body, but we're so much more. And you get glimpses of it, right? Like, what's your biggest evidence that we're so much more than just? I like to call it a meat suit. We're not just a meat suit, right? We're all this, like we light up and we can shut down and we do filter experiences, but thoughts it gets really deep quickly. But what's your biggest evidence that we're more than just what we
Yeah,
process through our bodies?
well, my own personal experience has shown me that there's more. Now, of course, my personal experience is not evidence for you or for anybody else. It's the experiences that I've had that, in my mind, are irrefutable evidence that this is not all there is. And it's for everyone else, my story would be anecdotal, and anecdotal evidence is not really evidence of much of anything unless you have lots of anecdotes. So I have had some unbelievably profound experiences that cannot be explained in physical terms. I've had out of body experiences. I've had astral projection experiences. I've The very first one I ever had was probably when I was 6 or 7 years old, and I went to visit my sister who was in a city about 100 miles away from me. I was in Atchison, Kansas. I popped out of my body. I went to her dorm room at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, and I hung out with her for about an hour. And the scary thing about that was after a while, I had no idea how I was going to get back to my body. But it happened. I just set the intention and boom, I was back in my body again. Now, she has no memory of me visiting her, but I have this vivid memory. And some people will say, oh, you had a hallucination, that was a dream. There are other explanations for it as well. But in the experience I had, I was awake, I was conscious, I was fully in my physicality, even though I was in a different city, miles away, outside of my body. And for me, it was irrefutable. Nobody can tell me that that was a dream, even though lots of people probably would. uh, this is one of the things that kind of makes it dangerous, or I think dangerous is kind of a loaded word, but makes you want to pause when you're describing your peak experiences with people who don't share that mindset. Because other people might think you're crazy, they might want to get you locked up, they might say you're schizophrenic, have you institutionalized, or just reject you. So a lot of times, depending on the group of people I'm with, I don't share my experiences very much, but I love sharing it with you and with your audience.
Well, thank you for
For
sharing. I mean,
me,
that's what we're getting beyond, right? Is that judgment
yeah,
or
yeah,
the narrative of suppressing people who have abilities, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
it's an important thing to recognize. Everybody has gifts, and I think that
yeah.
certain groups get targeted as like we need to focus on this group, but I think that the message is that we all need to listen to each other's stories and take them in without judgment. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had some things that have happened, not like body traveling, but feelings, presence, visions. I just know things,
Hmm.
and I know that you've helped me with your classes, open up more to that and the lucid dreaming, and it's magical, and so I'm really full of gratitude for your contribution to all this. And if somebody's drawn and they're still listening at this point, there's something in them that they know that they have too. So we're giving people permission and
Yeah,
a
thank you.
container, right? Because if you have a
It's
gift,
beautiful.
you need a container to hold that preciousness of your individual spirit, your soul journey, what you're here for. So
Yes.
I guess that leads us to, if somebody wanted to start expanding their consciousness, would you give them some tips, like practical? They've never done this before, but they're interested.
Yeah, there are so many things that you can do. It all begins with awareness, expanding awareness. Because if you tune in to the world around you, you'll begin to notice that there are currents of energy that have gone unnoticed previously. And some of those currents of energy have a mystical nature to them. Most of us go through life with blinders on. It's like I like to say sometimes we go through life as if we're looking through toilet paper tubes. We can only see what's directly in front of us, and we block out all of the information and all of the beauty and everything in nature that's around us because we don't need it for survival. We'll tune into it if we want to, have a moment of joy about nature or something like that. But for the most part, we basically stare straight ahead and we don't see what's going on around us. And then if something does happen that catches our attention that's weird that we don't notice, like you feel yourself walking through a spirit, or you see something out of the corner of your eye that flits by and you look and it's gone, we'll explain it away. A lot of people will explain it away and not investigate further. Say it's just a trick of the imagination. So when you begin to expand your awareness, you begin to realize that there are, as I said, these currents of energy that flow through nature that you're usually disconnected from. And the best way to expand your awareness is to go out in nature. So a lot of us have confined ourselves in the cityscape, in the urban setting, and we don't really get out into nature as much as we used to. Now, I don't want to imply that if you're in the cityscape, it's not possible for you to expand your consciousness. It is. It's just a little bit easier to notice those forces when you're out in nature. And if you open yourself up to the possibility that maybe every single thing that you see in nature is infused with spirit, and that those spirits have messages for you, that they have experiences and information and gifts for you, you'll begin to notice them more and more. I have encountered out in nature, I've encountered fairies, I've encountered animal spirits that were disembodied, not actually in the bodies of animals, but you could feel them and hear them walking by. I've even been guided by I would call them forest nymphs or forest fairies or something. I've gone hiking before and I've had these energetic beings come up to me and show me which way to go down the pathway. And they've always, they've led me to places that I would never have known existed out in the wilderness. So that's one way to expand your awareness. Expanding your awareness also means like just getting in touch with the world around you. We walk around in shoes all the time with our feet, in socks and then a pair of rubber shoes or high heels, and it feels good to walk in a nice pair of shoes. It feels fantastic to walk barefoot on grass. And that will open up your senses to feel what it's like to connect with Mother Earth, to connect with Pachamama below in order to get that deeper connection with nature. So I know those sound like simple things that aren't really directly related to consciousness expansion. We think of consciousness expansion as powerful breath work and ayahuasca ceremonies and going to Tibet and visiting with a guru who gives you Shaktipat and passes an activation onto you through your third eye. Those are very powerful experiences. I've had all three of them. But if you just begin with the simple things, just connect with nature, that's going to really lay the groundwork for you to accelerate the expansion of your consciousness later. So does that help at all? Does that answer your question?
It's very practical, and it's anybody can do that. You can
Yeah.
go out even if you live in the city. There are trees, and I've had great experiences. I don't know why, but the banyan trees in Miami, I'm in Miami and there's these big
Mm.
banyan,
Hmm.
and I can go and place my hand close to the trunk and I can feel the energy as I remove my hand from the trunk. It's like the tree is communicating with me, it's giving me some of its energy in some way. And even like when I go on hikes, I do say I greet the trees and I'll acknowledge them as I go by, and it does make it different. It's a different experience when you connect with nature like that, and it like you said, it is timeless when you do that because you're taking yourself out of your, like you said, your toilet paper rolls and your tunnel vision of surviving or any feeling of lack. There's just abundance when you can immerse yourself in nature. I think those are two awesome tips. And stress
Yeah.
relief, the forest, the trees can just lower your blood pressure. That's not a question, that's been proven, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what a better way to help your health than to be in nature and like you said,
Yeah.
walking barefoot. I love it.
Wonderful. And the other thing that's really beneficial about this is a lot of people when they're first starting out, they don't yet have the ability to notice the subtle nuances of energy. So when you're first starting out, a lot of times you have this feeling that you need to hear the booming voice of God in your ear. Otherwise, you're not hearing anything. You need a profound experience. You need to have an out of body experience like I had, or a vision of a being coming up to you and talking to you face to face. And the vast majority of the energy that you're going to encounter is very, very subtle in nature. And that's why walking in nature is going to be very beneficial to you. It's going to fine tune your senses, your higher senses, those your sensory perception that is beyond just the physical five senses. It's going to hone that so you can really begin to tap into those very subtle currents of energy. And you'll begin to notice little tiny shifts in energy that tell you that something is happening. Now, like I've said, I've had both. I've had the very subtle experiences of just feeling a gentle breeze on my face and knowing that a being has passed by. And I've had the utterly profound experiences that come from like an ayahuasca experience. And I've done many, many ayahuasca ceremonies, and some of them have been astounding in nature. And like I said, I have been to India, and I have had Shaktipat from a guru while there. It wasn't intentional. I didn't study with him, but he just kind of walked up to me and kind of looked at me, and I could feel this energy welling up, and then he moved on, and I took a photograph of him, and the photograph came back as nothing but this orb of energy. It wasn't, you couldn't see a person in the photo. So I've had those experiences. I had one of the most profound experiences I ever had was when I had my level 1 Reiki attunement, which a lot of you might think, oh, Reiki, it's very common. Millions of people practice Reiki. There are courses everywhere. That level 1 attunement that I got from the person, the master who trained me in Reiki, it was earth shaking for me. And it can be for you as well. So you can have both, and they support each other. So I know I've been babbling on about my experiences.
That there's
Mhm.
a lot of healing to be had. So, like you said, that
Mhm.
your energy brought that shaman to you. You weren't seeking him out, but you were open and available. And I think that's what people need to understand. Like with these kind of experiences, nothing's going to come to you that you're not ready for.
Mhm.
Synchronicity doesn't work that
Absolutely.
way. It's divine timing, and any being, they don't want to scare you. They want you to
Mhm.
be at peace with whatever experience you have. And so,
Yes.
just as
So
long
we
as you're
do need,
good heart. Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. So we do need to clear away some very, very common belief systems that a lot of people have. I don't want to imply that there are no dangers whatsoever of expanding your consciousness, and there are no unintended consequences. So one of the most common unintended consequences is that people just get overwhelmed with all the energy that's coming in. And it can make some people feel like they're going crazy because suddenly they've dialed the volume up to 1,000. And that doesn't need to happen. That's why going out into nature and tuning into the subtle flow of energy is so important. It can help you gradually emerge into alternate forms of consciousness so they don't overwhelm you and they don't feel like a tidal wave. There's also a very, very common belief that the spiritual world is just loaded with entities and demons who are just looking for somebody to attack. And my personal experience and my personal belief on this is you create your reality through your thoughts, your beliefs, your judgments, and your expectations. And if you firmly believe that danger is lurking around the corner, and you have the expectation that a dangerous entity is going to put a curse on you and infect you and possess you, then maybe you'll have that experience, but that's not really common. Sure, those experiences exist, but I think that, without getting into conspiracies and mind control and manipulation and so forth, I do think that there are a lot of institutions in our world that have seen the power and the value of consciousness expansion, and they've played on the fears of people to prevent them or to make them think twice about expanding their consciousness. So
I
you get a
agree.
lot of
I
like,
agree.
yeah, dogmatic religious traditions that tell you, oh, don't mess around with that. You're inviting Satan into your life. You're inviting demons in. It's gonna be like The Exorcist if you do that. But I think that's just controlling or trying to control people through fear, and that's not what we're about at all. So
I agree. I agree
yeah.
because
Hmm.
it is a powerful thing, and smoke and mirrors to control. Um, we could get into a whole nother topic, but yes, I do agree. And if there's ever a question, the only thing you can do is you put light around yourself and you say, I forgive and release anything negative around me, and I send it to its best place. But the best place isn't with you. So
Yeah, that so
there's no
works. That works
danger.
every
There's
time.
there's so
Yeah.
yes. Well,
Mhm.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up with that, because
Yeah.
we've touched on why, what it is, how you can ease into it, and if you want to go deeper, there are, like you said, ceremonies
Hmm.
and mind altering psychedelics, which
Hmm.
I think it's an amazing thing that's been stigmatized, and that's a whole nother show.
Hmm.
So it's all
Hmm.
about revealing these secrets and magical moments that our human existence isn't all about our meat suit. It's so much more.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I want to thank you. Was there anything else you feel like you would like to add?
No, I just want to ask everyone who's listening right now, those of you who've stuck around to the end, to just believe in yourself and believe in your power, and recognize that you are connected with spirit at all times. You are your higher self, and use that as the foundation for everything that you do in your life. So, without going too long, because I know that I can talk forever. I get the question a lot, how do I connect with my spirit? And the answer I always have is you don't, because you are eternally connected with your spirit. Just realize that the sense of disconnection is nothing but an illusion, and that alone is enough to expand your consciousness.
And along that line, when you're treating yourself as the divine being that you are, you're taking care of yourself. You're more clear. You're honoring yourself, and
Hmm.
that's the huge power, and that's when the real changes can take place, when you start treating yourself as that divine creature that you are. So I love it. I'm going to put links to your books, because you have several awesome books,
Thank you.
and I want everyone to be able to take advantage of those. And thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really adored this time
Mm,
with you, and thanks for everyone
yeah.
listening.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to the next episode. As always, you can reach me at www.youneedapeptalk.com. Be well, my friends, and enjoy each day, as each moment is a chance to live the life of your dreams. Take care.